Roaring tides, waves of mist, and unceasing rain. This is the ocean-covered world of Kamino, a planet which has gone from being completely ignored to being one of, if not the most, important planet within the galaxy. On and above the surface, the Republic guarded it as best they could, but beneath the waves, metal creaked, and through a wheezing mask, eyes of hatred fell upon Kamino. Welcome to the Wizards and Warriors channel. We're glad to have you with us for our next tale set within the Star Wars universe. As is our custom, we invite you to get comfortable, whether in a blanket or your gestation tube, and grab a snack or beverage as we recount to you the story of the Battle of Kamino. Though we have so far covered many major events of the Clone Wars, we have yet to name all the participants. While the major players were certainly the Galactic Republic and the CIS, with the Hutts acting in their own interests on the fringes, there is one more belligerent. Or it is more apt to say, a bystander in this war, the Council of Neutral Systems. Though not as large as their counterparts by any means, the Council was made up of over 1,500 systems within the Republic. Many of them were important trading hubs, though sadly we don't know the entire makeup of this sub-faction. So whether they were more coherent or spread throughout the galaxy, what we do know, however, is that the Council and its members were fairly important, as their neutral standing drew the ire of both Republic and CIS, with each side looking for all the support they could muster, and saw them as spineless traitors. The leader of this council was the Duchess of Mandalore, Satine Kryze. Although Mandalore had a history of military expansion and sported a martial society in the past, the current regime had slowly tried to dismantle this following a devastating civil war. Satine was adamant about engaging in no further wars, and this brave stance had inspired other smaller systems, which had thus far feared the repercussions of neutrality, to follow suit and rally behind her banner. The repercussions those systems feared soon followed this principled stand. Their choice of not fighting caused resentment among their fellow systems who had taken a stance in the war, with some planets going so far as to stop trade altogether with them. This was more than some systems could take, as these planets relied on trade to sustain themselves. This could well have ended the Council almost before it began, had it not been for their supporters within the Republic, the pacifist faction led by Senator Amidala. This connection allowed those members in dire need to make pleas directed to either the Senate or specific senators with the backing of the members of Amidala's faction. Even this was only a small lifeline, and many would resort to using the black market. Given the state of affairs with the Republic's ever-improving footing in the war, Dooku decided to turn his attention to this tentative alliance. If he could bring them onto his side, that would strengthen the CIS position both strategically and perhaps even more importantly, politically, increasing the legitimacy of the CIS. But given the nature of this alliance, it was unlikely he could get the majority of the systems on board. So instead, he opted to use them to further destabilize the Republic. Not all of Mandalore followed along with Satine's idea of a new Mandalore. Some reminisced fondly about their brutal past and were proud of the reputation Mandalore garnered as warriors without equals. Though there may have been other groups within the Mandalorians with this same mindset, the only one we know of, and the one which Dooku had an interest in, was Death Watch, a terrorist organization which stood in opposition to Duchess Satine. Dooku and Death Watch's leader Pre Vizsla conspired not only to free Mandalore of Satine's rule, but also to bring it into the fold with the CIS, though it is not known if Vizsla only saw Dooku's support as a means to an end or truly wished to support the Separatists. Either way, Death Watch soon struck, first targeting a Republic cruiser, and then spreading rumors of Mandalore's government sympathizing with the CIS, undermining their standing with the Republic. This drew the intended result, as now there was talk in the Senate of military occupation of the planet. Before any such plans were set into motion, however, the Jedi Council sent Master Obi-Wan Kenobi to investigate the situation, an ideal choice, not only for his skills as a negotiator, but also for his strong personal connection with Duchess Satine. Kenobi found that Mandalore had no involvement in the recent attacks, and was by and large a peaceful planet. He was also able to uncover Death Watch as the culprit after a brief investigation in which he and Satine were incarcerated on the moon of Concordia, where Pre Vizsla, the leader of Death Watch, was ruling as governor. They were able to escape back to Mandalore, and Kenobi agreed to escort the Duchess to Coruscant to plead her case before the Senate. Taking her ship, the Coronet, Kenobi rallied with Jedi General Skywalker and made way for Coruscant. But even this trip had its problems, as another one of Death Watch's members, Senator Tal Merrick, was also on board and attempted to assassinate Satine, first with assassin probes, then CIS battle droids which boarded her ship, and then by threat of simply blowing the ship up. He was ultimately slain by Skywalker, and the Duchess made it safely to Coruscant. The arrival of the battle droids had made it clear to the Jedi that Death Watch had the backing of the CIS, but all was not clear within the Senate. Indeed, more intrigue was to follow. As Satine pled her case, she was shown a holomessage delivered by her Deputy Minister Jarek, in which he decried Satine's policies as failing Mandalore and pled for a Republic intervention. This new evidence further spurred the Senate towards a military occupation of the planet, and eventually led to Satine's arrest. But luckily for her, she had friends in not only the Jedi, but also the pacifist faction of the Senate, both of whom were able to uncover Jarek's original message, which praised Satine's policies and spoke of a bright future for Mandalore whilst denouncing the Death Watch as mere terrorists. This was enough to cool the hot heads in the Senate and quell the ideas of a military occupation. This was a great victory for the neutral systems, though troubles would still lie ahead for them in this uncertain war. There's a dearth of information about military campaigns in this period, though it seems that a lull in fighting may have set in since the Second Battle of Geonosis. Most likely, a front line had been established, as after this point there is no mention of any large-scale offensive operations deep into either side, as there was with the Malevolence campaign earlier on, for example. It was at this time that the events in our prior episode about Geonosis took place, hinting towards the idea that large-scale operations were being bogged down. We do have mention of some activity along the Hydian Way hyperlane, which involved the Republic reinforcing their fleet there in order to counter General Grievous. Though as we may see later, it could have been a ploy by the CIS to throw off the Republic from their actual target. Even though the attempt to attack Kamino the prior year had failed to even reach the planet, it was still a high-priority target for the CIS. With the war effort currently going nowhere, Dooku decided that now was the time to once again attack the homeworld of the clones. Logically, it would have been sound for the Republic to have either moved the cloning facilities off Kamino, given its proximity to the front lines, or to simply build more cloning facilities on other worlds around their territory to maximize their production. It is possible that the Republic tried this, and we simply don't know about it. But in the end, it was the Kaminoans' will that won out, as their pride in their abilities, as well as their greedy pockets, wouldn't allow them to let anyone copy their trade, though they were willing to allow the Republic to send personnel to oversee the clones' training. Due to this, Kamino was one of the most heavily guarded of the Republic's planets, with an entire fleet dedicated to it. Though we do not know its designated name, it most likely consisted of around 5 to 8 Venator-class Star Destroyers, as well as presumably including other supporting ships, truly a large force. This strong defense clearly indicates why the CIS hadn't made regular attacks on the planet, but given the respite in the fighting elsewhere, or perhaps a slow build-up, they were confident in attacking once more. The CIS fleet consisted of 1 Providence-class battleship helmed by the cyborg General Grievous, 3 Lucrehulk-class battleships, 11 Munificent-class star frigates, and 3 Recusant-class light destroyers. Accompanying him as his second-in-command was the Sith assassin Asajj Ventress. This second attempt, however, would also not go according to plan, as the Republic intercepted a transmission between Grievous and Ventress discussing their planned offensive against the planet. Given the infamy of their opposition, the Republic recalled Generals Kenobi and Skywalker from their current missions to reinforce the garrison, currently under the command of Jedi Master Shaak Ti. This in total brought the Republic forces to 10 Venator-class Star Destroyers, 2 Acclamator-class assault ships, 2 Aquitens-class light cruisers, and Skywalker's command of the 501st Legion to reinforce the garrison. Kamino, being a world entirely enveloped by its oceans, made it such that all of its cities were built upon long supports connected to the ocean floor. The number of these so-called stilt cities is unknown. Suffice to say, a ground assault on this planet was inarguably harder than most other planets, and would require absolute air control. It was with this in mind that the Republic's strategy rested on winning the space battle, as they prepared minimal ground defenses, although the cities were put on alert with central command at the capital of Tipoca City. Grievous arrived with his seemingly massive fleet and deployed in the Echo 3 pattern. This pattern had all ships take defensive positions around the flagship, a move that very much suited Grievous's reputation for self-preservation, and thusly he began his assault. What was unusual, however, were two things pointed out by Shaak Ti and Kenobi respectively: the number of ships he brought and the recklessness of the assault. Even though one could say the CIS total ships outnumbered the Republic's, their quality was a different story, as the majority of their fleet were munificence, which could hardly go toe-to-toe with the Venator. Secondly, even though naval warfare wasn't Grievous's strong suit, this attack reeked of blind aggression, something the cunning cyborg very rarely indulged in. Nevertheless, the battle had been initiated. Grievous had his fleet attack in a spearhead, aimed towards the center of the Republic line, which was in a manipulative pattern. This had the ships create gaps in between themselves that allowed the line behind the first to fire. With the CIS closing in, Skywalker deployed alongside the other starfighter squadrons, with himself leading Shadow Squadron. We presume the Republic had a larger number of starfighters, given they were able to invade and dominate the CIS formation with relative ease, and soon the CIS began to lose ships, with chunks of debris falling off and plummeting to the planet below. Though the battle was going in the Republic's favor, not all was as it seemed. Kenobi suspected a trap, as he told Skywalker to not press the attack, an order which Skywalker contested. Kenobi was soon proven to be right in his fears, as he went to investigate the debris that had fallen around Tipoca City from the battle above. He discovered large numbers of aquadroids assembling numerous Trident-class assault ships, which had arrived on the debris. Kenobi was attacked, but managed to escape and return to Tipoca, while the Tridents began their assault on the city. Commanding this assault was the mysteriously absent Ventress, who had arrived upon Kamino days before and was hiding in the sea below the city, where she had waited for Grievous to deliver the deconstructed ships for her aquadroids to rebuild. Thanks to their built-in drills, the Tridents were able to penetrate the city at multiple levels, which caused widespread confusion amongst the garrison force. After boarding, the droids deployed and began to push the hastily scrambled clones back into the city. Kenobi recalled Skywalker from the fleet front, as the Republic forces had finally come to realize the true battle was unexpectedly developing on the ground. After reuniting, they both surmised that the number of droids was insufficient to take the city, and that their real goal was to capture the DNA template of Jango Fett, housed within the city. This was indeed the case. Given that the template was used for all the Republic clones, the CIS hoped to capture it and unlock its secrets, hoping to find genetic flaws they could use against the Republic, a particularly concerning possibility given their past attempts to create bioweapons. This task was entrusted to Ventress herself, so she made her way to the room which housed the templates, whilst Grievous, who had arrived on one of the disassembled ships, took command of the battle. Knowing they had to act fast, Kenobi went to personally deal with Grievous, while Skywalker made his way to the template chamber, where he found Ventress, having already obtained the DNA capsule. While both Jedi engaged in protracted duels with their targets, the droids' offensive was beginning to grind down. Surprise had been the primary fuel for the success of their assault, not numbers, and now that the surprise was beginning to wear off, and the clones assembled in force, the tide began to turn, just as the droids reached the command center. Having been continually advancing, the droids were spread thin, and when the clones began to counterattack, the droids quickly folded, quickly being pushed back to their ships. By this time, the Republic's specialized troopers, such as those of the Rancor Battalion, were showing up, and began to destroy the ships themselves, which plummeted to the very waves they had emerged from, though this time they weren't going to come back up. Skywalker succeeded in retrieving the DNA capsule from Ventress, with the help of members from his 501st before she could escape, and Kenobi was able to prevent Grievous from causing more damage by chasing him away from the front line, though neither of the Jedi was able to prevent the two from escaping. Though with their flight, the fight for the planet was over. The Battle of Kamino, also known as the Battle of Tipoca City, would be the last time the CIS would attempt to attack the clone homeworld. Having failed in both the objective to capture the DNA template and the objective of causing damage enough to hinder the production of clones, the faith Dooku had for both his agents diminished greatly, and he became hesitant to deploy them in such operations for the duration of the war. The CIS would find a morale boost from the fact that they were able to assault the capital city directly. It was a rather hollow source of pride, but one they needed to cling to given the string of recent defeats. The war would continue though, and as we shall see in our next episode, it was taking its toll upon both sides. If you want to see more episodes, make sure to subscribe and press the bell button. Please consider liking, subscribing, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.